friends who support this effort here today. Mothers Demand Action, Students Demand Action, members of the clergy who are here, and others. Thank you. We're never losing faith in keeping it together. And what can I say about my colleague? If we are going to achieve success here, having Cory Booker on the Senate Judiciary Committee that has jurisdiction over these issues is a critical reality for success, and someone whose voice and passion, as you just heard, is in comparison to no one else. He is unique in his understanding of this issue and his commitment to create ultimate change. So I wish we were here today in Branch Brook Park to celebrate something, to talk about another. I originally had intended to do an event about another of the many elements of the American Rescue Plan. But Cory and I felt compelled to change that and to speak to you today about this most pressing issue. If a nation is anything in terms of its government, it is to protect its citizens. And that protection doesn't just come from abroad, it comes here at home, too. I know Americans throughout New Jersey and the nation are anxious to put this pandemic behind us and get things back to normal. Yet the horrific mass shootings in Atlanta, Philadelphia, Boulder, implore all of us to ask, is this the normal that we want to go back to? Because here's the thing, when it comes to gun violence in America, there is absolutely nothing normal about it. There is nothing normal about the fact that Americans own 42% of all firearms in the world, despite comprising just 4.4% of the global population. We own 42% of all of the firearms in the world, and yet we are only 4.4% of the total world population. Think of the magnitude of that. There's nothing normal about a country that accepts routine slaughter of innocent people in their schools, houses of worship, grocery stores, and workplaces as a fact of life. There is nothing normal about a democracy that time and time again fails to respond to the will of the voters who overwhelmingly, on all sides, want reasonable gun safety reforms. From Aurora and Tucson to Newtown and Orlando, from Las Vegas and Parkland to Pittsburgh and Poway, from Dayton and El Paso and now Philadelphia, Boulder and Atlanta, we continue to be heartbroken by the horrors of mass shootings. And as we search for answers, as we search for anything that could explain these vile acts of mass murder, we often find that these are crimes of hatred. In recent years, racially bigoted rhetoric has gone mainstream, sending a signal to those with hatred in their hearts that it's okay to act on it. We saw it in the online comments made by the attacker who opened fire on peaceful Jewish worshipers in Pittsburgh in 2018. We saw it in the manifesto of the gunman who traveled to El Paso in 2019 and committed the deadliest attack on Latinos in modern American history. And while investigations are still ongoing, I think, for myself, I think it's important to say out loud that the recent killing of 6 women of Asian descent was a violent act of racism and misogyny that has no place in our country. As harrowing as these events are, there's a lot of gun violence in this country that does not grab the headlines. It seems we've grown numb to the routine gun violence that devastates our communities on a daily basis and actually increased during the pandemic. Not including suicides, the number of people killed by guns jumped from 15,440 deaths in 2019 to 19,380 deaths in 2012. It doesn't have to be this way. There are common sense, concrete ways to fix our broken gun laws. Senator Booker's absolutely right. President Biden must take executive action to help stop the bloodshed. For example, by funding the community-based violence intervention programs, by updating federal gun dealer definitions to close the gun show and online gun sale loophole. Likewise, I'm glad that President Biden is considering measures to close the ghost gun loophole, which allows individuals, including domestic abusers, prohibited buyers, gun traffickers, and domestic terrorists, to buy untraceable, unserialized firearms without a federal background check. Why do you want a gun that is untraceable, unserialized, except to commit a crime? No law-abiding citizen who seeks to own a gun and gets permitted for it needs an untraceable gun. I actually wrote to President Biden on this issue just a few days ago. Ghost gun-related crimes are on the rise across America, and they have become increasingly popular with white supremacy groups. But executive action alone is not enough, even though we call upon the executive to do those things that he can. But there are some things that President Biden alone cannot do. The Senate must act. Now, I think I'm the only person here who was around to vote for the assault weapons ban back in 1994. I was proud of that vote. I don't need to understand or see these weapons to understand that a street sweeper isn't about cleanliness. An assault weapon isn't about going to hunt a deer. If you have to use one of these things to go hunt a deer, boy, you're in big trouble. And I'm ready to cast that vote again so that we can get the kind of deadly weapons used in Boulder, much like the ones you see here, off of our shelves. Senator Booker and I have repeatedly co-sponsored bills to expand and enhance background checks and prevent guns from falling into the wrong hands. You need a license for so many things in this country. You know, the one we use all the time is driving because it's very common to us. But you want to be an electrician, you need a license. You want to be a plumber, you need a license. You want to be a lawyer, you need a license. There's so many things for which you need to be licensed. That doesn't take away your freedom in order to achieve. It makes sure that we are all safer in our lives by that these people meet a standard. Why not have a standard that people have to meet if they choose to purchase a gun? I've repeatedly sponsored legislation known as the Keep America Safe Act to stop the sale of large capacity magazines. Sheriff, this is a large capacity magazine. 30 rounds. Why do you need 30 rounds? And some hold even more. High capacity magazines are about high capacity killing. No other reason. No other reason. And this week I reintroduced the Gun Records Restoration and Preservation Act. This is long overdue legislation that would rid our gun laws of NRA giveaways that severely hamstring the law and its enforcement ability to solve gun crimes and stop illegal gun trafficking. So Senator Booker and I could stand here and talk about the different bills we've supported over the years to fix our broken gun laws. But the biggest problem of them all remains those in Washington who are more concerned about protecting the gun industry and its profits. Believe me, reasonable gun safety owners are I think we have more support among them, but those and the NRA that has been supportive of who? Not individual rights. They are supportive of guns and gun manufacturing rights. And they care about that more than about saving lives. I'll never forget that day in 2013 that the Senate fell 6 votes short of passing bipartisan legislation to strengthen background checks in the wake of Sandy Hook shooting in Newtown, Connecticut. 6 votes short. 20 children, 20 precious babies, just 6 and 7 years old, who were shot to death with an assault weapon that day. The deaths of these 20 school children and their 6 educators, a tragedy that was almost unspeakable, should have been the moment to bring about real change. And yet, within a few months, America's watched a basic proposal to strengthen federal background checks fail on the Senate floor. It still haunts me. It comes back as a nightmare every time there is a new tragedy. So I'm encouraged to hear Majority Leader Schumer pledge this week that we are going to have a real debate on gun violence in the United States Senate. Likewise, I'm glad to hear President Biden express his support for bringing back the talking filibuster. The way things are right now, my Republican colleagues do not even have to defend their indefensible positions, which is to oppose any and all gun safety measures. They don't have to go to the floor of the Senate and speak endlessly as to why they're trying to stop reasonable gun safety measures. They just call it in. I have opposition. They don't have to justify it. They don't have to show their face. They don't have to make the comments. They don't have to be exposed to their constituents and the whole nation. They can hide behind the current Senate rules where we have a de facto filibuster on every single piece of legislation that requires 60 votes to break. Well, I say it's time we force my colleagues to come to the Senate floor and explain to the American people why they oppose something as simple as universal background checks, or as common sense as cracking down on illegal gun trafficking, or as effective as a new assault weapons ban. Let's have that debate, because at the end of the day, sensible gun safety reforms enjoy overwhelming support from Americans across the political spectrum. So we have to remind ourselves that we do not have to accept horrific gun violence as part of normal life in America. We must reject the notion that we are powerless, and we must realize that we have the power to act, and that that power comes from the people. And with their voices, it is my hope we will finally get some reasonable gun safety measures passed and into law. With that, let me introduce, to some, present to others, one of the greatest county sheriffs that we have in our state, and I think in the nation, Armando Fontoura.
Thank you very much, Senator. You know, it seems that Senator Booker, Senator Menendez, we've done these things at least once a year for the past 25 or 30 years. We've been doing this. I think enough is enough. You know, you talk about your colleagues being able to work virtually and work from home for Newark police officers and Essex County Sheriff's officers, narcotics officers. We don't have that luxury. Working from home is not an option for us. We have to be out here. The public expects us to be out, even though they may be hiding, correctly so. They expect us to be around and be visible and keep them as safe as we possibly can. And that we do. What you see here was taken off the streets here in Essex County, primarily in our urban areas, Newark, Irvington, East Orange, West Orange, and other areas. These were all confiscated here from people who brought them, as the senators indicate, from elsewhere. You take a look at what you see here. The cases have been adjudicated, so therefore we can show it, we can display them. And eventually we're going to destroy them. We're going to burn them. We'll never see these out here again, which is the right thing to do. They all should be burned. There are over 350 million guns in the hands of our citizens in America. We only have 300 million people. 350 million that we know of. There are many others that we don't know about. How many guns do we need in this country? You take a look at this, the Colorado folks, the senator indicated that the clip is a 30-round clip. There's another variation of the same clip, which is smaller to be able to carry, but the big weapon, Joe, you want to pick up that, the next one, on top. Yeah, this is what Colorado. This was the same type of weapon that was used in Colorado, AR-47. Here's a variation of it. This is variation, same clip, easier to carry, not as heavy. combination of a different thing, because you can conceal this. You can carry this and conceal it. Very light to carry. Even Cory Booker can handle that one. See how light that is? You can carry that, put it under you. Now, as the senator indicates, who would go hunting? If you go hunting, you don't need a 30-round clip that could be fired in 15 to 20 seconds. It only takes one bullet to hunting. No one could use any of this firepower for hunting. This only does one thing and one thing only. It's designed to kill human beings out here on our streets. Can you imagine that? Mayor Baraka shudders. Last year, the great work of the Newark Police Department and Director Ambrose and his team, our department, we seized 600 guns. 600 guns through the city of Newark, Irvington, East Orange, and throughout Essex County. 600. Can you imagine that? Incredible that we didn't have more violence, thanks to the work of our officers, who are out here every day. Enough is enough. Senator, I hope that we don't continue to do this. I'm getting too old for this. Okay. I know you both are still young people, but I'm getting a little too old. Joe D can go on. Raz is the youngest of us all. But I'm getting tired. I'm getting so tired of this, because we are usually the first ones when there's an innocent child is shot, a mother is shot, a father is shot, an uncle. We are usually the ones, the mayor will tell you, that we have to break that news. Just another heartbreaking event that we have to deal with. So please, we're begging. Our officers are subjected to this type of gunfire, just like our citizens are. So we're asking you to keep our citizens safe first and foremost, and keep our officers safe by keeping this menace, these weapons of mass destruction, off of our streets. I wish you nothing but the best. Both of you, please make sure you succeed. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. And now we'll have Michelle Ruffin-Hughes of Moms Demand Action.
Thank you for the introduction. Thank you so much. I appreciate all of you gentlemen for everything that you do. And I also appreciate Moms Demand Action. It's funny because when I first met Teresa Turner, we was at a women's march, just walking, talking, and I asked her, I didn't even know at the time that she was part of Moms Demand Action. I just got into the contingent. So we got to talking, and I said, you know, what made you decide to form a group like this? She said, I formed a group for people like you, or people that have experienced this type of violence, to be able to have a voice. So I thank all of Moms Demand Action, including Teresa, for giving us a voice. The Sunday after my husband died, I went to church, and my pastor, he made a very profound statement, and it has stuck with me. He said, the shedding of blood is the beginning of a movement. And I do believe that this is, Moms Demand Action has definitely answered this call. So I'm going to read my survivor story. On April the 6th, 2012, our lives changed forever. My husband, Donald Hughes, was a son, a husband, a father, a nephew, a cousin, a good friend, and a pastor. He had two favorite holidays, Easter and Thanksgiving. So this being Good Friday, he was preparing to cook a big dinner for Easter like he had every year. earlier in the day, he had went to a funeral. He came home, we talked, we laughed, and he took one of the church members home. So I didn't go because I wasn't feeling good. So on his way coming back, he stopped at the grocery store to get some groceries for Easter dinner. So he came in, told the girls to go to the car and get the groceries. So our girls went and our godchildren went to the car, and they all came running back in the house, hysterical, crying. So I, was trying to calm them down to find out what happened. And they told me that there had been a guy outside. There was an altercation between them, and some words were exchanged. But what I didn't know is that he followed them up the ramp to the back of our house, and my husband went to close the back door. So as he went to close the back door, I heard him say something, and I watched him the whole time. As he went to close the door, I heard one shot ring out. And once it rang out, he closed the door, he turned around, and he went face forward on our kitchen floor. I'll never forget that. Because I worked in the medical field, I checked his vitals. He had a pulse, but I could tell that it was faint. He didn't make any noise. He didn't move. He just laid there in the floor. And I tried talking to him. I was reading the Bible to him. And I remember, you know how you open up a can? There was a hole in the back of his jacket, and it was turned up like a can. I'll never forget that image. I called 911. They took 45 minutes to come to my house. Of course, they had to take him to the hospital, and he was pronounced dead. And I was asked, why did I join Moms Demand Action? And I joined because I wanted to be a voice for my children. At the time, we had 7 children together. And at the time of the incident, my daughter, who's now 18, was 9 years old. And her and my cousin was in the kitchen because my cousin was doing her hair because I wasn't feeling good, so she offered to help me. But that 9-year-old baby could not sleep for 2 whole weeks because she said, Mommy, every time I close my eyes, I see Daddy. And I'm pretty sure if you were to talk to my children, they would tell you how they feel about their father dying. But the bottom line is this. Gun violence has to stop. And that starts by passing life-saving background checks legislation into law. Here, it says we don't have to live like this. We shouldn't have to live like this. Yesterday on the news, there was an Asian gentleman. I'm sorry, if he wasn't Asian, he was Latin. Just talked about his wife, a random victim of violence. She can't come home anymore. She's going to be buried. The children no longer have a mother. He no longer has a wife. He no longer has a friend that he can talk to or just curl up in the bed with at night. And is there going to be any justice? Is that person going to be found? Maybe not. Maybe never, because the killer of my husband has never been found. And this is nine years later on April the 2nd, which will be Good Friday again, that his killer has not been found. So no, we shouldn't have to live through these tragedies. We shouldn't have to explain to our children that their parents are gone and they will never see them again. Not in this earth anyway. We don't have to live through tragedies like the shooting in Atlanta, the shooting in Philadelphia, the shooting in Boulder, Colorado. And you know why there really isn't any action in the city? I'll tell you why. Because we have become numb. There is an everyday occurrence in our cities. We've become numb and we've become complacent. It's just a regular norm. Somebody else got shot. Oh my God, I'm praying for their family. But do you have to walk with that family when you have to take your child to counseling? When they got PTSD and that's really not diagnosed? When they want to push pills on your children to say they have ADHD? Huh? Do anybody really know my pain? Absolutely not, because I have to live with it. I have a 14-year-old right now still asking me, why hasn't Daddy Killer been found? Why do I have to live without my father? They have an issue with going to church because he was a pastor, because we believe in God. They've never questioned God, but maybe they have, and I just don't know about it. So when is this going to stop? When are we going to get your fellow Congress people to get on board and pass these damn laws? This is ridiculous. Maybe I never liked politics, but at the end of the day, this is a political matter. How many more lives do we have to lose? For all we know right now, there's somebody that got killed right now. There's a domestic violence victim right now who's being beat by her husband, and he's contemplating to kill her. What do we do for them? What do we do? Where does this stop? These are the names of those that was lost in Boulder, Colorado. Nevin Stowanisic, Ricky Olds, Trelona Barkowiak, Susan Fountain, Terry Leaker, Kevin Mahoney, Lynn Murray, Jolie Waters, Eric Talley, and Denny Strong. May they rest in peace. And may we move swiftly to honor their deaths and every other person who has died at the end of a gun.
Michelle, thank you for that incredibly powerful and tragic story, but nonetheless for sharing it. It's not easy. It's not easy. And we appreciate your willingness to do it. Let me bring to the podium Jai Patel of the Students Demand Action Movement. Jai?
And I'm a gun violence survivor and New Jersey Students Demand Action leader. Had their lives changed forever because of gun violence. And as survivors, these shootings are reminders of the paralyzing fear we have had to endure. They force us to relive the worst moments of our lives. These tragedies once again underscore the fact that the United States is in the midst of a gun violence epidemic that includes both mass killings and daily shootings that impact cities like Jersey City and Newark. We cannot and will not accept gun violence in our supermarkets, to our spas, to our homes as just another fact of life. According to a study released by Stop Asian American and Pacific Islander Hate, from last March to this February, there are at least 3,795 reported racially motivated attacks against Asian Americans, fueled by racist rhetoric from the former president. And by more than a 2-to-1 margin, these attacks target Asian American women. Even before these disturbing trends appeared, we had already seen the deadly impact of the former president's racism and misogyny. Anytime the former president, NRA leadership, or right-wing media extremists repeat racist tropes about the pandemic, and make no mistake, they're racist tropes, the entire Asian community is placed in even more danger. Gun violence has remained an unceasing epidemic inside an already deadly pandemic. 2020 was one of the deadliest years on record for the United States, with estimates suggesting that total gun deaths will exceed 40,000 people, a 50-year record high. And this is in the midst of a pandemic when most of us were inside. State gun laws are absolutely critical, and although New Jersey serves as a national model thanks to organizers on the ground, our U.S. senators, and a gun-sass governor, we're only as safe as the closest state with the weakest gun laws, which is why we need federal legislation now. I am 21 years old. It's been 25 years, 25, since our national leaders passed a major federal gun safety law. Not in my lifetime. That's 25 years of survivors mourning their loved ones, 25 years of tireless organizing, 25 years of senseless shootings like the ones in Atlanta and Boulder, and countless others that don't make headlines. This deadly drought has to end. It absolutely has to. The ball is now in the U.S. Senate's court. The time to save lives by passing background check legislation into law is now. The United States is not the only country with mental illness. We're not the only country with domestic violence. We're not the only country with hate-fueled ideologies. But our gun homicide rate is 25 times higher than any other high-income country. Why is that? Because we arm hate time and time again. The difference, like I mentioned, is easy access to guns. The connection is not theoretical, as much as Ted Cruz or Josh Hawley might want you to think. We know and have proven that states with weaker gun laws have higher rates of gun violence. There is no question that this is a tough fight. You have survivors who should be at home with their loved ones, out in the streets demanding change, leading the fight. This is our moment to act, and we're not going to stop at anything to seize it. There are now millions of gun violence prevention organizers in Moms Demand Action, Students Demand Action, and beyond who are going to stop at nothing until the Senate acts on background checks. We will not stop until we fundamentally transform gun safety in America, even if that means one law at a time. Thank you. Now it's my pleasure to introduce our last speaker, chairperson of the Korean American Sanctuary Church Network, the New Jersey chapter, and pastor of the Sandal Korean Presbyterian Church, Pastor Dae-Ho Kim.
Thank you, Senators, and bring me here. Year 2021, March 22nd, Boulder, Colorado, 10 killed. March 16th, Atlanta, Georgia, 8 killed. February 2nd, Muskogee, Oklahoma, 6 killed. 5 of them were children. 5 of them were children. How many more lives must be lost before change is made? Over 4,000 people have already lost their lives to gun violence in this year alone. How many more lives must be lost? Last year, 2,808 of hate crimes against Asian Americans were reported, and anti-Asian hate crimes rose nearly 150%, while overall hate crime fell by 7%. How many more? Our everyday life is becoming more dangerous, especially Asian Americans. So I'm here to stand with my brothers and sisters to stop the hate, the bigotry, the racism, and the gun violence. I have victims of hate crime in my congregation. I have my close friends and fellow pastors shaken by hate speeches and violence. It's not just physical. It is mental, psychological, and spiritual trauma. I still believe, America is not the place to destroy your dreams, but it's a place to make your dream come true. Yet the dreams of Asian American communities are crushed by hate, ignorance, guns, and violence. We don't want America to be a place where someone merely has to survive, but the place where everyone can thrive. So let us keep our communities safe. I know a pastor who said, I have a dream. One day, right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with the little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. May I have a dream. May I have a dream. One day, everywhere in America, everywhere, black Americans, white Americans, Asian Americans, Pacific Island Americans, all Americans can join hands as sisters and brothers. Yes, join hands, not fists, not knives, not 9mm handguns, not AR-15 rifles, hands, your hands, and my hands. So we march together, today, joining our hands for our dreams of peace, prosperity, and safety. So I would demand the Congress to act now. Now. We can do better. We have to be better. And we will be better. God bless you. God bless America.
Well, thank you to all of our participant speakers. We also have one of the leaders of the Korean community who's been with us as well. We thank you for coming. With that, Senator Booker, I will take a few on-topic questions.
Senator Booker and Senator Menendez, how can you assure Americans that you call for President Biden to use executive action? But how can you assure them that President Biden will in fact take that executive action to combat the gun reform issue?
Well, I think President Biden has already said, in his first national press conference, he addressed this issue, even to the extent of saying that as someone who is a creature of the Senate, where he spent decades, said that the Senate should change its filibuster rules in order to meet some of these challenges, including gun violence. So anyone who feels as passionately about that, I think, will use his executive powers to do that which he can. And however, we also recognize that with what he can do, as Senator Booker outlined, and I'll invite Corey to join me, that in and of itself won't be everything we need to do. And so the Senate was sacked as well. Right, yeah. I'm not going to jump to that presumption because let's give him the opportunity. You can ask me that question if he doesn't. Next, yes.
How do you respond to opposers who say it's more of a mental health and a Second Amendment issue and not a gun control issue? How do you respond to that?
I know that Senator Menendez and I are senators, and it's been a long time since I was 21 years of age. But Jai already responded to that. And he did it more eloquently than I did, and he has a lot more hair. I mean, I thought that was one of the most powerful things that was said today. He said, other countries have mental illness. Other countries have domestic violence. Other countries have hate groups. We are the only country that has this astonishingly high levels of killing with guns. We are way out and away, and a unique nation that has now a level of gun violence in a time when we are not seeing war in our territories. This has never before been seen in humanity, this level of gun violence in a country with peace in its territory. And the last thing I'll say, it is difficult for me to use statistics. He is 21. I'm 30 years his senior. In my lifetime, there have been more people killed by gun violence than in every single war in American history, from the Revolutionary War to the current wars in the Middle East. That is a stunning reality. But as Michelle said, now go to every single individual that died, and you heard her pain, her living and continuing nightmare, the trauma to her children. She didn't talk about the economic devastation to a family when you lose one of your breadwinners. Every single one of those people in my lifetime, tens and tens of thousands of people, have the kind of pain and the kind of hurt and the kind of ongoing agony that you heard. Why? Why would we as a nation allow this to continue when we have the power to stop it?
And one more comment. If I'm mentally ill and I don't have a gun, I can't kill somebody. So if we have the background checks that we're all calling for, that would be one of the things that would hopefully be weeded out, that those who have mental illnesses would not have access to a gun. I can have a mental illness, but it doesn't mean I kill somebody just because I have a mental illness. And if I don't have access to a gun, then I definitely can't kill somebody. So it's just, it belies common sense as to why we shouldn't seek legislation. Anyone else? Yes. I'll let Senator Booker lead the way on that, you know. Dice que está listo, así que ok. Mira, estamos aquí, el senador Booker ya con el ejecutivo del condado y el sheriff y todos los madres y estudiantes que quieren ver cambios sobre la violencia de armas que existe en nuestro país. Como un país tenemos más armas como 1% que el resto del mundo. Como un país tenemos más violencia de armas que otras partes del mundo. La realidad que estas armas, armas de asalto, no es para ir a cazar. Armas que actualmente tienen la capacidad de tirar 30, 40, 50 balas en un minuto. No es para ir a cazar, es para matar. Es para matar. Y tenemos que tener leyes razonables que controlan las armas en nuestro país para así salvar vidas. ¿Cuántas vidas más vamos a perder? ¿Cuántas vidas más vamos a perder que es totalmente innecesario de vivir esta tragedia? Y como dijo la señora en su mismo caso, de tener que vivir esa tragedia cada día de su vida, con sus hijos cada día de su vida. Armas controladas no es negar armas abajo la Constitución, armas controladas, asegurar que esos que tienen un antecedente criminal, que tiene alguna enfermedad mental, que son abusadores domésticos, no deben tener acceso a una arma. Y creo que eso es una ley razonable. Senador Booker.
So, rápidamente, estamos aquí hoy porque vamos a decir, necesitamos parar la situación con armas en nuestro país. La situación es inaceptable. Con su ayuda, con la gente de nuestro país, tenemos el poder, pero necesitamos acciones ahora. Un voz de la gente. Necesitamos decir no más. Congreso necesita pasar leyes contra violencia. La presidente, necesitamos acciones ejecutivas para parar violencia con armas en nuestro país. Con el poder de la gente, con fe, en trabajo duro, vamos a tener éxito. Este es nuestra lucha.
Now I'm going to have to learn another language to one-up Booker. So I used to have the just. Parlez-vous français très bien? Well, look, it will take the voices of the American people rising up and saying enough is enough. Saying to their members of Congress in the House and in the Senate, I will not vote for you if you don't vote to have reasonable gun safety measures. And as Adlai Stevenson used to say, when I get the heat at home, I see the light in Washington. So that is really one of the most powerful, important ways we can change this dynamic. The second is that it is our hope that if we change, and I personally support the reform of the talking filibuster, which those of you who may have seen a classic, because you're all generally too young, but Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, where he endlessly has to speak to stop something from happening that he thought was terribly bad. That's not the reality today. The reality today is any senator who wants to stop something simply calls it in to the floor managers and says, I oppose that, and you're going to need 60 votes to stop it. She or he doesn't have to show their face, doesn't have to make their case, doesn't have to stand the scrutiny of all of you and the scrutiny of their constituents and the American people. I think that will dynamically begin to change this subject, because you're going to have to go on the floor and make your case. And maybe Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley will do it anyhow, but there's a lot of other senators, I will tell you, who won't do that. So this would be one step forward. I think that may be the possibility. Because if there's with all due respect, if there's someone else, I want to give everybody else a chance. If not, we'll go to you. Is there anybody else on topic? Okay. Well, as Speaker Pelosi, there's already been some measures that the House is moving and has moved in the past, so I believe that's pretty well established. And Senator Schumer made a public statement that he is going to have a robust, we couldn't even have a debate on the Senate floor under Senator McConnell, the Republican majority leader. We're going to have a debate, and I hope votes on the Senate floor under Majority Leader Schumer. So thank you all very much for coming. Appreciate it.